Asmat Guru Namaha, Asmat Parama Guru Namaha, Asmat Sarva Guru Namaha. Offer my respects to all my teachers. So today in Hari Bhakti Vilas, we are going to start the sixth Vilas. So up until now, we have learned all the preliminaries for doing worship of Lord Krishna, mostly according to Krama Dipika, which is the way that it's laid out in Hari Bhakti Vilas. And Krishna is the example deity that we're going to be worshipping, because the emphasis in Hari Bhakti Vilas is on the Astudasakshara or Gopal mantra. And that is an emphasis all the way through Hari Bhakti Vilas, in Purascharya, in Diksha, in Puja, in all of the rituals of the worship of Lord Krishna is emphasized, and the use of that 18-syllable mantra. So what we're going to do is we learned all the preliminaries up to and including Manasika Puja, and then we got in a little bit of a sidetrack talking about different types of deities. So we talked about the different forms of the Lord, and we talked about the Pancharatric forms of Vishnu, and we talked also about Shalagrams and Dwarka Shilas. Interestingly enough, there's no mention of Govardhan Shilas, so maybe that came in later on. Of course, we know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave a Govardhan Shila to Raghunath Das Goswami, so that was right there in the beginning of the Gaudiya Sampradaya's history, that Govardhan Shilas were also worshipped, and yet it is not mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas somehow. So there are other forms of Shilas and what we call tadiyas, or stones, that may come from sacred places like Chitrakoot or Ayodhya or Ahobilam, different holy places, which are also worshipped. Some of them are considered non-different from the Lord and self-manifest deity, and some of them are considered just to be holy things which are in association with the Lord's pastimes or leelas or places of pastimes. Okay, so having finished that at the end of the fifth Vilas, now we're getting back to, in the sixth Vilas, we're going to get back to the actual worship of the deity, the external worship. Because we didn't really start the external worship of the deity, we got sidetracked into talking about different forms of the deity. So let's have a look at the sixth Vilas and see what it says. Okay, so we have here sixth Vilas, Sri Krishna, and just like all the Vilasas, by the way. Oh, I wanted to mention, having finished the fifth Vilas, we are now a quarter of the way through the whole Hari Bhakti Vilas. Right, maybe not by the number of verses, but by chapters. There are 20 chapters, and we finished 5, so we're a quarter through. That's good. So, in the beginning of every chapter, Gopal Bhatta composes a verse in praise of Lord Chaitanya, right? Speaking about, which gives a hint. The first verse of every Vilas gives a hint, while praising Lord Chaitanya. It gives a hint of the contents of the particular chapter or Vilas. So here, this one says, Sri Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Prasadena, Tad Rupam Gokulotsavam, Manogyam Yastu Kamasya, Murtyarcha Vidhi Ruchate. So Uchate means we're going to speak about, and Murtir here means Murti or deity, and Archa means Archana or deity worship. So now we're going this. So this is telling us that this whole Vilas, this first chapter is about, the sixth chapter, is going to be about Murti worship, about the worship of the deity. Right. So we already dealt a little bit with the glories of Shalagram and the self-manifest deities of Shalagram. So let's see what this actually says. So it says here, for the benefit of those who desire to worship Lord Krishna's enchanting form, which is like a festival for the residents of Gokula. Right, so this is Gokula Utsavam, right? The process of deity worship will now be described by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya. See, Sri Chaitanya Prasadena. Nice. Prasadena means the mercy, by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya. Nice. So the Shalagram Shila is the direct appearance of the Lord and is thus considered to be the best form for worship. Still, due to its extraordinary beauty and sweetness, the devotees are attracted to his personal form, as described in the deity, or by the deity. In consideration of this, the author will now describe the procedures of actual deity worship and not just Shalagram worship. Right. So that is all in a bracket here, because that is not actually part of the Sanskrit in the original sloka. But then he's just given that as an aside, an explanation. So that's nice. So let's continue on with text number 2 of the 6th chapter. This is also a very important pramana. So here it says Swayam Vyaktaha. Swayam Vyaktaha means self-manifest. Stapanscha. So we have the word at the end of the first line, or the first quarter, we have the word cha. Cha in Sanskrit means and. So we have two things here. Two things, Swayam Vyaktaha and Stapana. Stapana means to establish or to install a deity. And Swayam Vyakta means he's self-manifest, a self-manifest deity. So it's going to give us a definition here, a pramana, a proof, scriptural proof. We don't know where this is from. Maybe this is written by Gopal Bhatta. He doesn't say it's from anywhere. But anyway, it's from Hari Bhakti Vilasa, so therefore it's a proof for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So, because he's written it. And therefore he says, Swayam Vyakta Stapanascha Murtayo Dvivida Mataha. Dvivida Mataha. Dvivida means there are two types of murtis, the Swayam Vyakta and the established. The self-manifest and the established, right? Swayam Vyakta, Swayam Krishna. He says, this is very clear. It's very clear. He says the Swayam Vyakta, the self-manifest deity, is non-different from Krishna, is exactly Krishna. Swayam Krishna is Krishna himself. Stapanastu Pratistaya. Right? So he says here the two kinds of deities, the self-manifest deity and the installed deity. Sri Krishna's personal appearance is the self-manifest deity. When the deity is manifested by the efforts of the devotees, so when we install a deity, when it's the devotees who make a deity and install a deity, then he is known as installed, or he's known as the Stapana deity. There's a Stapana deity or a Pratista deity, right? That's one type of deity. And the other type is the self-manifest, the Krishna himself comes as the deity, meaning like the Shalagrams and the Dwarkashilas that we were talking about at the end of the last Vilas. Number 5. So continuing on with text 3 to 6, we got a conversation between Lord Shiva Mahadeva and his wife Parvati, consort Parvati, in the Padma Purana Uttarakanda, which means a later section of the Padma Purana. And Shrinu Devi Pravakshami. This is very typical that agamas. One definition of agama is that which is spoken by Shiva to Parvati about Vishnu. That is one definition of agama. So here he says, Shrinu Devi Pravakshami. He's saying, oh, Devi, listen to me. Please listen to me while I tell you this, whatever it is. So let's see what he's going to say. So hear now with attention as I reveal to you the understanding of Lord Hari's worship. So again, it's in Hari Bhakti Vilas, we always get this first sloka where we say about where Gopal Bhatta tells us sort of what's going to be the contents of the chapter. And then he starts off with different definitions. And according to those definitions, he then expands on the definitions into the whole chapter. So here he's saying there are two categories of the forms of the Supreme Lord, the self-manifested and the installed. Okay, so first of all, we had this verse by Gopal Bhatta up here, verse 2, which tells us that. But because it's not from a scripture, because it's not actually taken from a scripture, Gopal Bhatta is a great guru, he's a great teacher, but he's telling us this, but he wants us to be absolutely certain, not to just take his word for it. So he quotes from Padma Purana as well and says something exactly the same as there in the scripture. Here it is. So I'm telling you there are two types of deities, the installed and the self-manifest. Now I'm going to prove it to you by giving you a quote directly from a scripture, Padma Purana, which says the same thing. So this is very common, very, very common that a teacher, right? This is the method of teaching, is the teacher will teach and he will say something and then he will back that up. He'll back that statement up. He'll back that doctrine up by quoting so many scriptures different that he knows and different pramanas or proofs from those scriptures that back up what he says. So he says there are two categories of forms of the Supreme Lord, the self-manifest and the installed. to make the deity of Lord Hari from clay, stone, wood, or metal, and then invoke life into the deity by following the rules and regulations as prescribed in the Shrutis, Smritis, and Tantras, is called the installed form of the Lord. So it's a very, very clear definition of what an installed deity is. Yeah? And he's mentioned some of the different materials that an external deity, can be made out of: clay, stone, wood, metal, right? Which we get also in the 11th canto, 27th chapter of the Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna's instructions on deity worship, which probably will be mentioned also here later on. But that list of materials that the deity can be made out of, bona fide deities can be made of, is mentioned also here. Okay. So when the Supreme Lord, Sri Vishnu, personally appears in this world and resides in a stone or wooden form, as is referred to as the Lord's self-manifest form. So he's giving a slightly broader explanation of these two types of forms. Because the self-manifest form is rarely seen in this world, right? So it's rare. So we have the shalagrams are self-manifest form. But we say there maybe is even a form of the Lord who self-manifests. Like we have the Radharaman deity who manifests from a shalagram, but he looks like Krishna, threefold bending form. So we have other forms in the Hovalam of Narasimha, in some of these. There are, in fact, 8 places, according to different sampradayas, there are different numbers of places, but the Sri Vaishnavas count 8 places as having self-manifest deities. So we have, for instance, Sri Rangam. You have the Ranganath deity, which is supposed to have been born out of the ocean, churning of the ocean of milk. You have, I think I'm not quite sure, Badrinath. So there are some other places that are self-manifest. So if anybody wants to know, I'll look it up, the eight self-manifest places. It doesn't come to me right now. But anyway, and then you might go to different temples around India, and you might go to a temple and they say this is a self-manifest deity. So it's possible that there's a lot more than 8, but there might be 8 famous ones or whatever it is. Okay, so that's the point. The point is that the self-manifest deity is rare. So because the self-manifested deity is rare, and because Vaishnavas, they all want to go to a temple near them, and they all want to worship the Lord in their house as well, and they feel attracted to a form of the Lord rather than just the shalagram. Although the shalagram has some very important features which make it easy to worship, still people are attracted to other forms which they can offer nice clothes to and nice ornaments to, and that are very appealing to our minds and our meditation. So because of that, Vaishnavas should duly install the deity and then continue to worship him with faith and devotion. So they should install the deity. Now, this chapter is not going to be about installing the deity. That is going to come in the 19th chapter. Here, we're just simply starting off by saying there's these 2 types of deities, which we are going to now learn how to worship externally. There's a self-manifest deity, right? And we're not talking about shalagrams here because we're talking about a deity which we can actually put clothes on, and ornaments and crowns, and put a flute in his hands and all these sort of things. So Vaishnavas should really install that deity and continue to worship him with faith and devotion. Good. So next, we're going to get a Mahatmyam, a glorification of worshipping the deity form, right? So this is a specific Mahatmyam about worshipping the form of the deity, worshipping the deity in a murti form. So we can worship the deity of the Lord in many forms. We can worship him in the fire, we can worship him in the water, we can worship him in the sun, we can worship him in our heart, we can worship him in a yantra, we can worship him in a mandala, we can worship him in an areca nut or a supari. We can worship him in a there's many ways, there's many forms, in a kumbha, in a pot, we can invoke him like that. But here, we can worship him in the Shalagam Shila, right? Which is also a self-manifest form. But here specifically, the Mahatmyam, or the glorification, is going to be the worship of a deity, either self-manifest or installed by human beings, right? that is got a nice form, a beautiful form, and this is coming from the Hari Bhakti Suradaya, which is a famous shastra. So let's see what it says here in this seventh text. By worshipping the deity of the Supreme Lord, the devotee not only delivers his entire family, but he also delivers the entire world. So it's specifically glorifying the worshipping the deity form of the Lord. Such worship awards him the benefit of performing fire sacrifices. Right. So there are some sections of Hindu society in India where they reject Murti worship or Murti puja. There's a famous section called a group called Arya Samaj. Samaj means a group, a community, and Arya means that they believe that they're Aryans. Aryans means followers of the Vedic civilization. So those persons from India who follow the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal Vedic religion. So those people, this Dayananda Saraswati who started Arya Samaj, his idea was the original Hinduism is based on the Vedas, and the Vedas don't talk about Murti worship. They only talk about fire ritual, yajna. So those Arya Samajis, they reject fire ritual. They reject not fire ritual, they reject Murtis, right? They are only for fire rituals. They only want to do fire rituals. So you find there are some people like this who they are only interested in fire ceremonies. They're not interested in worship. But in the Vaishnava Sampradayas, we not only perform fire rituals, but we also perform the Murti worship. Sometimes we hear about there being different processes for attaining the Lord or attaining liberation or for worshiping the Lord in different yugas. So these are also sometimes called yuga dharmas, the process of religiosity in particular ages. So the first age, it said that the process of religiosity was meditation. So everybody had long lives; they could meditate for long times, and they meditated. In the next one, they performed fire rituals. In the third one, they performed the deity worship, and in Murti worship. In the fourth one, the Kali Yuga, they simply chant the Lord's names. So this is a very common theme, especially in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, because the emphasis in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is not on meditation, is not on fire rituals, it's not on even deity worship so much. It became more on the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, which is called Nama Sankirtanam. And it's recognized by all the Vaishnava Sampradayas that Nama Sankirtanam is the Dharma of Kali Yuga. But at the same time, all of the Sampradayas, they also engage in meditation, they also engage in fire rituals, they also engage in Murti worship. So here we see although Hari Bhakti Vilasa is specifically meant for Gaudiyas, but also for other people, other Vaishnavas as well, the mention of Murti worship is there, and it's given an important place. Okay, so continuing on, now it says, text 8, there's a heading that says, bathing the deity and oneself. Atashi murte prasadanam atmadishu sujyascha. Okay, so purifying oneself and bathing the deity. Okay, so purifying the deity. So text 8, one should bathe the deity, deities that are made of stone or metal, by washing them with water mixed with perfume and sandalwood paste. So here, specifically, we have this term here, Shastagandha Jaladina, along with water, but Shastagandha, that has got some perfume or some fragrance in it, like that. Now, there is a thing called Astagandha. This is not, doesn't seem, unless the Sanskrit is wrong here, this is not Astagandha, but this is Shastagandha. So I can see that this, very easily, I can see that there might be a sloka with Astagandha in it, which means 8 different types of herbs and spices that are put in the water to perfume the water that is used for bathing the deity. Then it says, so here he said perfume and sandalwood paste. He's translating ganda as sandalwood paste. Here, I think, rather than sandalwood paste here, it actually means there are different perfumes, different smells. Sometimes we hear the word ganda, and the word ganda in puja as an upachara is sandalwood paste. The sandalwood paste, or sometimes sandalwood paste mixed with aguru and camphor, or one or the other, and offered to the deity. Okay, but in this case, the word ganda means simply perfume. So he doesn't. So he said sandalwood paste. It's not wrong, but it's probably a more specific use of the word, which is not what it's meant to be here. So other deities that are made of clay and wood or by painting, etc., should be bathed by chanting the Mula mantra. Okay, so here is saying Mula mantrena marjayet. Now, it's not that we don't chant the Mula mantra when we bathe the deities with water, but the point in the sloka is being made is that you have deities of stone and deities of metal. They can be bathed with actual water. Deities of clay, deities of wood, or if you have a painting, if you have a picture or a painting, you don't bathe those with water. You can bathe them in some other way. And here is suggesting that you bathe them by chanting the Mula mantra. What's the Mula mantra again? The Mula mantra, or the main Mula mantra that's being used here, is the 18-syllable mantra. Then Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Valavaya Swaha, the Astadasa Akshara, 18-syllable, Gopal mantra. Okay, so continuing on with text 9 and 10. One should touch the deity's heart and chant his worshipable mantra 8 times. So this is carrying straight on from doing the Manasa Puja. We are now going to do the external worship of the deity. So how are we going to start that? So he says the first thing you should do, right, is you should touch the deity's heart. And it says Swamantram, means your mantra. You should chant 8 times. So whatever mantra you're initiated in, you should chant 8 times. Right? In this case, it's the Astadasakshara mantra. And does this come from? He doesn't say what shastra this comes from, but anyway, maybe he'll give another quote later on. Okay, so once you touch the deity's heart, now how should you touch the deity's heart? I don't know. Maybe you may have to touch it with kusha. You may touch it with your right hand. But anyhow, you touch the deity's heart and chant. Maybe there's a commentary here by Sanatana Goswami which says something about that. We'd have to look at that. Right. Touch it and chant the Mula mantra 8 times. Okay. This will help to purify himself. This will help one to purify himself. So touch the deity and chant the Mula mantra 8 times. One can also purify oneself by steadying the heart. So we're talking about different types of shuddhi here, different types of purification. Stana shuddhi, stata, dravya shuddhi. So there's prakara vedana. Okay, so what we're talking about is chatushtaya. Okay, there's 4 kinds of purification are being mentioned in the later part of these verses. Okay, so one should purify oneself by steadying the heart. So that means steadying the mind, right? So there are 4 kinds of purification, 2 mentioned in this verse, as well as the purification of paraphernalia and the place that were described previously. Okay, so he says there's these 2 ways of purifying yourself, right? One is you touch the deity's heart and you with your right hand and chant the Mula mantra 8 times, and then try to steady the heart, try to steady the mind, try to meditate and calm the mind, right? Then you also have to purify the paraphernalia that you're going to worship the deity with, the external paraphernalia, and the place where you're going to worship the deity. So normally you would clean the place first, and then you would set up the paraphernalia, and then purify the paraphernalia. Okay. So that's all going to be probably discussed in more detail as we get along. So text 11, in this regard, Narada has said, and exactly where Narada has said this, but he's a great sage and has a lot to say about mantras and deity worship. So let's listen to what Narada has to say. One should sprinkle water on all the articles of worship by using a flower, right? So here it says here, pushpena. Pushpena means by a flower. Right? And prokayet. I think this is actually should be prokshayet, right? The word is prokshana, right? To sprinkle. There's different ways of sprinkling things, but prokshana is a very common word for sprinkling. and then okay, so Malasnanam Tata Kuryat Patre Devam Nidayacha. After doing this, one should place the deity on a separate platform and bathe him. Okay, so what Gopal is doing is here, he's giving all of this in broad strokes of how we should worship the deity. And so he'll get into more detail as we go along. So one should place the deity on a separate platform and bathe him. Okay, so now here we can understand that the deity we're talking about is a movable deity. Normally would be a metal deity, a smaller metal deity, rather than a large stone deity, which is installed in permanently and connected to the altar. Okay, so he's talking about bathing a deity, and the deity to be bathed is a movable deity, which is taken to a separate place, which is a bathing receptacle or a snana patra or a bathing paraphernalia, place for bathing, and is bathed. So text 12 and 13. Anyanapi, another opinion. Here's another opinion, right? According to another opinion. So Narada gave his opinion. Now here's another opinion. One should purify flowers and rice paddy by chanting mantras, right? So how are you going to purify a flower? How are you going to purify rice paddy, right? Some people think that you should sprinkle flowers with water. Other people say you shouldn't sprinkle flowers with water. Okay, this is a controversy, right? Certainly, rice paddy, if you sprinkle it with water, it will tend to rot. So unless you're going to actually thresh the rice and cook the rice, there's no point in using water. So how do you purify these items? Now we're going to talk about purifying paraphernalia and purifying the place, right? So different types of paraphernalia will be described and different methods of purifying. So, and very interesting here at the end of these text 13, it says Sampradaya Anusarataha. Whenever you see Sampradaya Anusarataha, it means follow your Sampradaya, follow what your teacher tells you, and follow what your lineage, the way that your lineage does it. Or your ancestors, your spiritual ancestors or material ancestors. How did they do it? And how did they teach you to do it? That you should follow. So if there's any difference of opinion, it may be because different people have traditions of doing it in different ways. That's not a problem, he says here, basically. And he also mentions Shat Sudayaha, means 6 types of purification. Okay? So here we go. Right. So for flowers and rice paddy, simply chanting mantras is the way to purify something. What does it say here? Mantradi Shodhanam. Mantradi Shodhanam. Okay. So there's a thing called Shodhanam means to purify. In fact, there's a system. I think it may be talked about soon here in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. It's just mentioned, but there's a system which is also used by the Sri Vaishnavas called Soshana Dahana Plavana. The Soshana Dahana Plavana, and also Surabhi Mudra. Surabhi Mudra, or the mudra that looks like the cow's udder, where the milk comes out of the cow, right? That is a type of purifying mudra or hand gesture that can be used to purify things, along with certain mantras like Shum Shurabhyaya Namaha or whatever it is, like that. There may be mantras in the Pancharatra for that. It may not be mentioned here. And then we have this Soshana Dahana Plavana. These are also methods of mantra purification. So normally when you do Soshana Dahana Plavana, I'll just describe it. Soshana Dahana Plavana means writing on the palm of the hand, and there's different opinions as to which hand to start first. But these 3 processes are: Soshana means drying, Dahana means burning, and Plavana means nectarizing or wetting or nectarizing. So if you want to purify something, you dry it up first. Like, for instance, if you have cow dung, right, with wet cow dung, which is fresh cow dung, you take it and you dry it in the sun. And when it's dry, then you can use the cow dung cakes for, fire ceremony or whatever it is, right? Or for cooking. So, but you dry it up first. Okay, so first of all, drying and then burning. Burning also is a way of purifying things, right? So you can imagine even in the autumn or the fall time, the leaves fall off the trees and people gather up the leaves because they've all dried up, and then they burn those leaves, right, like that, to get rid of the leaves. So drying and burning naturally comes after drying, right, and then reconstituting or making a thing, nectarizing a thing, making it pure in a pure form, because the ash that comes from burning is not really considered normally pure, except some Shaivites consider certain types of ash to be pure, but normally Vaishnavas, we don't consider ash to be pure unless it comes from a fire ritual. Okay, so so drying, burning, and nectarizing. Okay, so how do we do that? So there are different deities to do with drying. There's a deity and drying, burning, and nectarizing. The first deity is the deity of the wind. The wind dries things. So the wind is Vayu. So there is a bija mantra or a seed mantra for Vayu. That is Yam. Y-A Anushvara. M with a dot. Yam. Yam is the bija mantra for Vayu. So by chanting the bija mantra of Vayu, by writing the bija mantra of Vayu on our palm and showing it over an item, right? Then this is a mantric way to dry up something. We meditate upon a thing drying up by writing the Yam mantra on our palm, passing it over a thing, and chanting Yam. And in fact, there's more to it than that. They say that you write Yam on your hand, and as you pass it clockwise over the thing, you say Yam Vayave Namaha. Yam Vayave Namaha, Soshayami. Soshayami means I dry you up. So Yam Vayave Namaha Soshayami. Then the next thing that you do is you want to meditate upon now burning up the thing that you just dried up. You're purifying the thing by drying it up first, then burning it, then nectarizing it. Oh, so Yam Vayave Namaha Soshayami. The next thing is write again, and the way you write a bija mantra on your hand, on the palm of your hand, is normally with the pavitra finger, the pure finger, right? The ring finger of either the right or left hand, depending on which hand the other hand that you're writing on. And then you make the characters in the script that you know, right? So if we know English script or Roman script, we can write Yam in English script. If we know Devanagari, we can write Yam Bij in Devanagari. If you know Tamil or some other Indian script or some other world script, you write it in the script which is useful for you to give the bija mantra, to make that sound of the bija mantra. You just write it the way that you would write it. Okay, and then show it over the thing. So Yam Vayave Namaha Soshayami. Ram is the bija mantra for fire or Agni. Yeah, Agni is fire. So for burning things up, we have to meditate on fire. So we say Ram, Agnaye Namaha, Dahayami. Dahayami means I burn you up. And in each case, we say Namaha. We offer obeisances to those particular deities, invoking them to do these actions of drying and burning. Next, we come to nectarizing. The nectar is conceived of as coming from the moon, Soma or Chandra. So Chandra is the one who gives all the flavor to the vegetables. The moonlight is the thing which gives all the flavor to the vegetables and to the fruits and things like that. So the nectar is supposed to come out of the moon, right? So we say, what is the Bij mantra for the moon? The Bij mantra for the moon. So we have Yam Vayave Namaha Soshayami, Ramagne Namaha Dahyami, Vam, which is Varuna Bij, right? Varuna has to do with waters, right? It has to do with waters, right? And may also be used in this case. Vam Amritaya Namaha. So Yam Vayave Namaha, Soshayami Ramagne Namaha Dahyami, Vam Amritaya Namaha, Plavayami. Plavayami means to wash or to inundate with nectar, to pour nectar on, to pour water on. Plavanam. Plavayami. I nectarize you. I wash you. So once again, summarizing, Soshana Dahana Plavana. Soshana Dahana Plavana. Soshana Dahana Plavana is Om Yamvayave Namaha Soshayami Ramakdena Mahadahiyami Vamamutana Mahaplavayami. Right? And then show Surabi Mudra. That can also be done. These are ways of purifying things with mantras and mudras. Okay. There's other mudras that can be used that are used over paraphernalia to protect the paraphernalia, Matsya Mudra or Chakra Mudra. There's other, to install something, to keep it there. There's mudras for installation, for mudras for invoking things. We're going to be talking about mudras in a minute, some more. But now we are talking about simply purifying. So we just talk about the processes of purifying. So this is one process of purifying by doing mantras. Here in these slokas, we're talking about 6 different ways. So one should bathe a deity by washing him with water mixed with sandalwood paste, which is again the translation of the word ganda, I'm sure, up here. No, I don't see ganda actually. So I see murti shuddham. So we have, first of all, here we're talking about dravya. Dravya means ingredients. So flowers and other ingredients. I don't know where he gets the word rice paddy here. But there are many different ingredients in rice. Rice could be akshara. Akshara means unbroken rice, which is mixed sometimes with turmeric or kumkum, which is used as a substitute item for different samagris or ingredients in deity worship. But here, he's just basically saying, pushpan chatadi dravyanam of dravyas. Dravyas means ingredients, right? Kuryan mantradi sodhanam. So mantradi sodhanam, beginning with mantras, purifying with mantras, these things. So ingredients should be purified with mantras. Then it's got chalanenanam bule pader murti sudim samacharet. Okay, so one should bathe the deity by washing him with water mixed with sandalwood paste. So I don't see the word sandalwood paste, but anyway, we do murti sudhi. So first of all, these are 2 sudhis. So we have the dravya shuddhi and murti shuddhi, right? The cleansing of the ingredients and the cleansing of the deity. Then it's talking about the next shuddhi, which is talked about out of these 6 purificatory things, atma shuddhi, right? Atma shuddhi is here, right? So Atma Shuddhi means that after purifying oneself, one should purify the altar, right? So we have Atma Shuddhi and probably Chitti Shuddhi, right? What does Chitti mean? Let's just have a look in the dictionary. Chitti means having the habitation or house, or it could mean the altar, right? Okay. It can also mean the earth, right? The place, purifying the place, let's say. So he said purify the altar, and I would say purify the place where we're going to put the paraphernalia and everything. So first is purify. There's 6 types of, this is a definition of the 6 types of purifications. Purification of ingredients, purification of the deity, purification of our own Atma. What does Atma mean in this sense? It means mind, body, and soul, right? So the soul, of course, is pure, right? But it is covered by illusion. So we have to meditate to have a pure soul. But we also have to have our subtle body pure, and we also have to have our gross body pure. These things are also going to be explained, how to purify the gross and subtle body, right? We already learned how to take bath. That's already there in the previous Vilasas. So we don't have to learn how to cleanse the body physically, but we will learn how to cleanse the body in other ways by doing pranayam, by doing bhuta shuddhi. These are the other ways to purify the body. Okay, so that's atma shuddhi. Then chitti shuddhi, cleaning the place, right? And we know from our experience that there are different ways of cleaning the place. We can perform punyavachana and sprinkle water around with mantras. There's many ways to purify the place. Okay. Then mantra shuddhi. Now mantra shuddhi is interesting because normally we consider the mantra to be pure. The mantra is pure. The problem is that we're not pure and we chant the mantra. So sometimes we don't chant the mantra purely. So we need to also purify the mantra, which means we need to meditate on the mantra, chant the mantra, and we need to understand the meaning of the mantra while we're chanting the mantra, right? So there are deep esoteric meanings to mantras. That should be explained by the teacher who gives you the mantras, or it can be explained by another teacher actually also. In the case of Ramanuja, he had somebody who gave him the mantra, and he had another person who gave him a very deep philosophical understanding of the esoteric nature of the mantra, of different parts of the mantra. So anyway, that's okay either way, but we should know those two aspects of the mantra. We should know the meaning of the mantra, and we should also know the words of the mantra correctly and how to pronounce them, and we should be able to chant them. So chanting and meditating on the meaning, those are important things for mantra. So mantra shuddhi, the mantra has to be purified before using it in the deity worship. Okay. So what does it say here? In this regard, some people recommend that the devotee should purify his heart and the mantra he chants. Yes, very good. Okay. Thus, according to the rules laid down by various sampradayas, there are a total of 6 purifications a Vaishnava should follow all these procedures while keeping the rules and regulations of his sampradaya intact. So anusarataha means he should follow the system given by his acharyas in his sampradaya, in his lineage, like that. So here, Gopal Bhatta is going to give the procedures for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But in case your lineage gives some slight different way to do it, then you should follow your lineage. That's the point. Okay, so let's go over and let's see again if we can see these 6 different types. Dravya Shuddhi, right? Dravya Shuddhi, which means purification of the ingredients. Murti Shuddhi, purification of the deity. Atma Shuddhi, purification of the Atma. Shiti Shuddhi, purification of the place. Mantra Shuddhi, right? Purification of the mantra. And Paramachitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi means purifying of our mind and intelligence, of our entire being. Yes, and we have yes. So okay, so if you can't, you can also always watch the rest of this on YouTube as when we put it up. So these are the 6 types of purification. So let's continue on now and see. After that purification, what happens next? The next thing is text 14 and 15 talk about Pita Puja. Now, Pita Puja, Pita is the altar, means the altar. So either we conceive of the deity sitting in a certain place and being surrounded by certain personalities and having a certain type of throne, or we're actually worshipping the external throne like that. We did, I believe, a type of Pita Puja within our heart when we did the Manasika Puja. So here it's probably talking about an external Pita Puja that is done either with flowers or with mantras or whatever it is. So let's talk about that. The process of worshipping a sacred spot. Sacred spot, it means the altar or the place where the deity is situated. So he says here, one should take a copper plate or sheet and smear it with sandalwood paste. One should draw 4 gates and at the 4 corners. Okay, so you draw what is called a bhupare, right, which is a square. Chaturashram. Draw a square, but in each of the middle of the lines, leave an opening, like a gate, 4 gates to come in. Yeah. So it says here there should be 4 gates, right, and there should be 4. It says at the 4 corners. It doesn't mean at the 4 corners. It means at the 4 directions, in the 4 directions. Yeah? Okay. So then after that, one should engrave or paint, again, with sandalwood paste, probably, right? One should paint a 16-petal lotus flower. Okay, so in the middle of that, we want a 16-petal lotus flower surrounded by 8 leaves. So first of all, there's a 16-petal lotus. And outside of that, there's an 8-petal lotus. The lotus should be enclosed by 3 circles, right? So there should be 3 circles around, right? And it should have a stem. It should have a stem. Okay, so exactly Chatudvara Vibhushitam Puja Yantram Samudritya Pitacham Tata Sadayet. Okay. Sodasa Kesharam. Sodasa Kesharam. Kesharam actually may mean something different. Sakarnikam. Okay. So I would need to probably go over this Sanskrit because it seems to be describing a particular type of yantra, which is worship in the Pita Puja. Tamradi pite, so you make it out of tamra, out of copper. Shrikandaya, lipte astadalam likit, so you draw an 8-petal lotus, right? I don't know where he got the 16 petals yet. Oh, here it is. He's saying here, sodasa keshara. The keshara doesn't mean petals. Here he said it means petals, but keshara is the as far as I remember, the keshara is the lines in the middle of the lotus, or points in the middle of the lotus, which are like the stamens of the lotus flower, the internal part of the lotus flower, and they represent the different syllables of the mantra. Here they're said to be 16. I don't know why they're saying 16 because it's an 18-syllable mantra. Maybe I'm not quite sure about that. Okay, so anyway, so we've got Karnika. Karnika is the internal part of the internal part. So I actually have a different idea of the way he's translated it here. It's, to me, it seems like there's a square with the gates, right? But inside the square there's an 8-petal lotus. Inside the 8-petal lotus there's 3 circles, right? Inside those circles there's 16 dots. That would be my translation of this. But anyway, Trivrita Adadyam Padmam Sodasa Kesharam. That this lotus has Sodasa, it's got 16 stamens. Right. Sadalagram, in the Dala Agras, which means Sadalagram. Maybe there are 16 dots on the 8 petals. There's 2 dots on each petal. The dalagram means the agra means coming from the lotus petals, right? Chaturaskonam means the square. Chaturdwaram, there are 4 gates. Vibhushitam, it's decorated with these things. Puja yantram samudritya. Okay, so it's describing the puja yantram that you perform the Pita Archana. Pita Archam, Patra, Sadayet. Okay, this is the place for doing the Pita Vastra, the Pita Puja. After preparing a yantra in this way, one should worship it properly. Okay. Okay, so now maybe if we look in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, let's zoom the recording. So back, I was just looking at the Digdarshini Tika for the 10th verse up to the 14th and 15th verse, which we're on about the Pita Puja and worshipping this particular Pita Yantra. Okay, so it does seem that there are some instructions by Sanatana Goswami in the commentary. There are some mantras to be chanted also when we touch the deity's heart and chant the 8 mantras, the Mula Mantra 8 times, right? It also says we should chant, I guess, to purify oneself, right? One chants Atma Tattvaya Namaha, Vidya Tattvaya Namaha, and Sri Bhagavat Tattvaya Namaha. So then there's some more descriptions of things to do, which we don't need to go through here exactly. But then coming to the puja, the Pita Puja section, texts 14 and 15, maybe 16 or so. And continuing on, we have to make this yantra. As I said, it's a square. There's a square form with gates, with on a copper sheet, with sandalwood paste, and inside we're going to put an 8-petal lotus. Inside the 8-petal lotus, there are 3 circles. Inside the circles, there are apparently 16 dots, which are kesharas, right? And different things are being worshipped. The here it's going to talk about the worship of the Guru coming up, and there are some mantras to be chanted. The Guru and the Guru Parampara are part of this Pita Puja. Right, so let's continue on and see how it explains about on this, after you prepare this yantra, how you actually do the worship. Right, so on that pitam, on the left side, right, which is stated here in Sanskrit, Vame means the left. So on the Bhagavad Pita yantra, on the right-hand side, sorry, the left-hand side of the Lord is considered to be in the middle of this pita or pedestal. We call it a pedestal or a throne, right, made of copper with the yantra written on it. Right, one should worship his spiritual master and the disciplic succession on the left side. And the shoes of the spiritual master and the predecessor Vaishnavas, such as the great Narada, sage Narada. And the mantras for doing that are, right, so it says here, Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha, etc. So if we're doing the Guru Parampara, we say Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha, Shri Parama Guru Bhyo Namaha, Shri Parapara Guru Bhyo Namaha, Shri Parameshti Guru Bhyo Namaha, like that. And it also mentions, though, that we can use the Bija mantra made up of the first letter of the gurus of the name Guru, or whatever personality we're meditating on, and we can say Gum Guru Bhyo Namaha, Gum Guru Bhyo Namaha, right? And then we're offered then also worshipping the Lord, the Guru's sandals, the Guru's padukas, his shoes, right? Om Shri Guru Padukabhyam Namaha, Om Shri Guru Padukabhyam Namaha, etc. So what it's saying here is, first of all, worship the Gurus by saying Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha or Gum Guru Bhyo Namaha, etc. For the Guru, the Param Guru, the Param Guru, and the Parameshti Guru, which means at least four or five generations back. And then their footwear, their shoes, and also then Narada, Sri Narada. So we could say Sri Narada Rishaye Namaha, like that. Now, I have a Gaudiya Padati from Orissa called Gopal Puja Padati, I think Gopal, anyway, whatever it is. I will look this up, and next time what I'll do is I'll read that from there, because I'm sure that gives the exact mantras to be chanted. But in any case, we're worshipping the Guru Parampara, and we're worshipping the Guru Parampara sandals or shoes, and then we're also worshipping Narada on the left side of this yantra. So this would probably be maybe inside of the four squares, but outside of the lotus petal, the 8 petal lotus. Okay, so that's worship of on the left side. Now on the right side, it says in text 78, on the right side one should perform the same sort of worship for, and how should we do the worship? Probably by throwing sandalwood paste, dipped flower petals, or akshata, rice, mixed with turmeric or kumkum, right? So on the right side and chanting the mantra, of course. On the right side of the Lord, one should worship Durga, Ganesh, and Saraswati. So it's very clear here. So next time anybody tells you that Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't worship these devatas, you can point them to Hari Bhakti Vilas, 6th Vilas, 17th verse. Dakshine Charayed Durga. On the right, worship Durga, right? Ganesh and Saraswati, and Saraswati and Ganesh, right? Tatra Praglikita Nyasit Syanusarena Pujayet. Okay, so we worship. So we would say Om Durgaya Namaha, Om Gum Durgaya Namaha, Om Gam Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Aim Saraswati Namaha. I think like that probably. Okay. So this is on the right side, after doing the Guru Parampara and Narada Muni and the footwear. This worship should be performed according to the process of Nyasa described earlier. Likita, Prag Likita Nyasa. Nyasa means placement, right? So I'm not sure. Probably just offering some flower petals and sandal paste or some akshata, but I couldn't be sure exactly about that. Okay, so then continuing on with text 18 and 19, in the middle of the pitam, one should worship Prakriti, Adara Shakti, Kurma, Ananta, the earth, the ocean of milk, Sweatadweep, the jewel altar, and the desire trees, right? So the way that you do that is, how does it start? Om Prakritiye Namaha, Om Adara Shaktiye Namaha, and then some other mantras. So it would be Om Prakritiye Namaha, Om Adara Shaktiye Namaha, Om Kurmaya Namaha, Om Anantaya Namaha, Om Bhumye Namaha, right? Om Shira Samudraya Namaha, Om Swetatdvipaya Namaha, Om Ratna Simhasanaya Namaha, Om Kalpavrikshaya Namaha. Okay, probably that would be the way, right? And I have this probably written down. I think we went over this before. This is very similar to the way it's done in the mental worship. Okay, so in the four corners of the square, right, we have Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya, and Aishwarya. Then we have in the four directions where the gates are, we have Adharma, Ajnana, Avairagya, and Anaishwarya. This is very common Pita Puja, Pancharatra Pita Puja, in most of the different Vaishnava Sampradayas and Smara Sampradayas, they do this. I say so. Om Dharmaya Namaha, Vairagya Namaha, Jnanaya Namaha, Vairagya Namaha, Aishwarya Namaha, right? Adharmaya Namaha, Ajnanaya Namaha, Avairagya Namaha, Anaishwarya Namaha. Okay. So then in the middle of the Pitam, one should worship Ananta, Padma, Surya, Chandra, Agni, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the soul, which means Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, the soul, Atma, the super soul, Paramatma, and the conscience, Antaratma, might be called Antaratma. The eight energies such as Vimala, the eight energies are in Vaikuntha, there are 8 ladies, there are actually 9 of them, but here it's stated 8. They're called Chamaradaris. They're energies of the Lord. They're considered like goddesses who hold chamaras and fan the Lord. So they're surrounding also the central portion here. So the way to do this, what are we on? 18 and 19. Okay. The way to do this would be 18 and 19. Okay, so we have to write this out in the form of prayoga and give all the mantras for it. But anyway, you're going to be just chanting, Om Anantaya Namaha, Om Padmaya Namaha, Om Suryaya Namaha, Om Chandraya Namaha, Om Agni Namaha, Om Sattvaya Namaha, Rajasaya Namaha, Tamasaya Namaha, Om Atmaya Namaha, Paramatmaya Namaha, Antaratmaya Namaha, the 8 Vimalayi Namaha, and etc. The different 8 different Shaktis, right, are worshipped on the 8 leaves. The 8 leaves. I'm not sure whether that means the 8 petals or the 8 leaves. If we look up here in the Sanskrit, it says Karnika. Okay. Shaktir Navasta. Navasta Patreshu. It says Patreshu, it says leaves. But in fact, we have a flower which has petals, not leaves. Okay. So maybe we conceive of there being leaves outside the petals, I'm not sure. Or it could just mean the petals. One should then worship the 9th energy, Anugraha. Oh, yes. So I mentioned there was actually 9, right? So there's 8, but there's actually 9. So these are the 9 Chamaradaris from Vaikuntha. On top of the yantra, one should then chant the Pita mantra in the 4th dative case while vibrating Om in the beginning and Namaha at the end. For example, so he's giving some examples here of Om Adara Shaktiye Namaha, Om Am Surya Mandalaya Namaha, Om Sam Sattvaya Namaha, Om Hrim Jnanatmaya Namaha. So there's actually, we'll find the full prayoga for this and exactly all the mantras and how to chant them and we'll make a prayoga for this and we'll post it, so no problem. But right now, it's from the Sanskrit, he's only giving a hint of how to do it, and it's understood that people understand and know how to do Pita Puja, so not too much of it is given. So they have some examples of the prayoga in the Digdarshani Tipa. Om Am Surya Mandalaya Namaha. Om Soma Mandalaya Namaha. Om Vam Vani Mandalaya Namaha. Om Sam Satvaya Namaha. Ityadi. Om Hrim Jnanatmane Namaha. So these things are given also in the commentary. So continuing on, Gopalachana Padidi will have this. We'll have all of this in exact way how to do it, in exact order. So then text 20 to 21, right? We're now talking about thereafter, once you place the deity on the pitam. So we have this movable deity that we now place on this proper pitam, right, in the middle, while chanting the Mula mantra. So we chant the 18-syllable mantra, Gopa mantra, and place the deity there. Thereafter, one should take flowers in his hand. And of course, when we move the deity, we should not touch the deity with our left hand. We should put a silk cloth or a pure cloth on our hand if we're going to use both hands to move the deity. If it's a smaller deity, we can just move it with our right hand from the altar to the bathing area or this particular yantra area that we've just been worshipping, the pitam, the pedestal where the deity is going to be bathed. Right. Thereafter, one should take some flowers in his hand, and while remembering the Supreme Lord, offer flowers to the deity. Nice. One should do this 3 times while considering that his worshipable Lord and the deity are non-different. So thinking about the Supreme Lord, offer flowers 3 times. This is, if you ever go to Radharamanan and you see them do any worship, they always start by offering tulsi to his feet or flowers to his feet 3 times and discarding it in the throw-out pot, which is called the Visarjaniya Patra. Okay, so continuing on, right, now we have the process of invoking the Lord or inviting the Lord, avahana, right? One should then invite the Lord while sitting with his legs crossed, because it's forbidden to worship the Lord while sitting with his knees touching his chest. Okay, so then we've got the deity in front of us on this pitam where the deity can be worshipped and bathed. We've worshipped the pitam first, then we brought the deity, we put the deity on the bathing place, the Pita Yantra, and then we sit down with our legs crossed and we're going to worship the Lord. One should invite the Lord to appear at a suitable pace. There is no need for the invitation, right, or immersion in the worship of Shalagam Shila. So if you're worshiping a Shalagam, you don't have to do this next part. And neither do you have to valedict or send away the deity. But because this is a movable deity that we're worshiping here, we have to do next the avahanam of that deity and the visarjan of the deity. If you're in a temple or if you have another stone deity which is permanently installed, then the avahanam of that deity is done from the main deity. So that the energy of the main deity is meditated upon as entering into the deity which you're going to bathe. In case you don't have a permanently fixed deity, right, which is permanently installed, then you can call the Lord to come from any particular place, from Sri Vaikuntham, Golokam, from the Surya Mandala, from different places, right? Right, you can ask him to appear and to enter into the deity and to reciprocate with you and be offered this worship of bathing, etc., like that. So that is called avahanam, and visarjanam at the end is where we valedict him and we say, "Thank you very much for coming here. We've offered you all this worship. Now you please go back to being worshipped by the eternal devotees in Vaikuntha or Goloka, and next time we hope that you will come again and grace us with your presence, personal presence and reciprocation in our puja the next time." So this is called avahanam, or calling, and visarjanam, sending the deity, like that. And it's mentioned that this is for the chala murtis, or the movable murtis, the murtis which are temporarily installed and are movable, not for the permanently installed murtis. Normally the stone deities are permanently installed and stuck to the altar with the Pita Ratnanyasa, which we'll find out more about in the 19th Vilasa. Okay. So then continuing on, now we have, therefore it has been said, right, in this text 24 and 25, although an invitation of ahanam and an immersion He says immersion here because sometimes when you do the valediction of a clay deity, then you throw it in the sea or you throw it in a river and it just dissolves. Okay, so that's why Visarjana is sometimes called immersion, but it's not immersion; it's valediction. It's thanking and praising and allowing to go back to his original abode. Right. So although an invitation and immersion or valediction, right, invocation and valediction are required for the worship of the deity, invocation and invocation and immersion, invocation and valediction are not required for the worship of Shalagam Shila. So he said it again, said it a couple of times. The all-pervading Supreme Lord's presence is not as prominent in his various abodes, such as the sun or Vaikuntha, as it is in the Shalagam Shila. Okay? Right, so that's the point. And that we don't know where that's from, but that's a quotation from scripture, obviously. And we continue on with text 26 to 27, right? The procedure. What is the procedure for doing the invocation of the Lord? Okay, so the procedure, the actual procedure is going to be outlined here. Now, once again, we're going to have to look in a Paditi or a Prayoga to see exactly how it's being done, because we don't see a lot of Gaudiya Vaishnavas following this anymore, right? And also, we have experience of people doing it in other sampradayas, so we can take from that, because the procedure is going to be very similar. But here it's going to explain, and a lot of parts of this are not going to be exactly explainable right now. But we're just going to go through it anyway. The procedure for inviting the Lord or for doing this avahana. Learned devotees should first display the prescribed mudras. So there are these mudras that should be described, should be shown, right, for inviting the Lord, and then perform the rituals, right, according to the mudras. So avahana means to call the Lord. Samstapana means to establish the Lord. Sanidapana, and then we have Sanidapana, Sanirodhana, Sakalikarana, Avaguntana, Amritikarana, and Paramikarana, one after another, right? And these all have different meanings. And to go through the meanings, we need to look at. I have something which I've written about this, but in general. But there are a lot of different mantras and mudras that are described here. And to go through them all, we have to go through them in detail and do it in a prayoga way. But let's just understand that in general, we have to show these different mudras one after another. And it says here, now we'll understand the meaning of what we've just done, the invocation of the Lord or the inviting of the Lord. So from the Agamas, it says here that, this is text 28 to 31, to invite the Lord with devotion so that he appears to the devotee face to face is called avahana, right? To install the deity with faith and devotion is called samstapana. To think, oh Lord, I belong to you, right? I'm your slave, I'm your servant, I'm your property, right? Is called sanidapana, right? So by showing these mudras and chanting certain mantras, you are telling the Lord all these things. You're praying to the Lord in all these ways, and you should be meditating on the meaning. Right. To ensure that the Lord is present until the worship is completed, it is called Sanirodhana. To manifest the transcendental form of the Lord as he is Sakalikarana. To display intense ecstasy is called Avaguntana. To engage all of one's bodily limbs in the service of the Lord is called Amritikarana. Right? And to fulfill the Lord's desires is called Paramikarana. Okay. So now we're going to hear about the Avahana Mahatmyam. So before we read about that, let's just pause once again for a second. So reading from the Digdarshini Tika by Sanatana Goswami for verses 26 to 27 of the sixth Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, we have some mantras mentioned here that go along with the mudras which we use for Avahanam. So we have Sri Krishna, Iha Avaha, Iha Samyak Tishta, right? Iha Samyak Tishta, Iha Sani Dehi, Iha Sani Rudrasva, Iha Sani Rudrasva, Iha Sakalikuru, Iha Sakalikuru, Ihavagunta, Ihavagunta Swa, Ihavagunta Swa, Ihamriti Kuru, Ihamriti Kuru, Iha Paramikuru, Iha Paramikuru, right? And these go along with the mudras that are shown. So one by one, you show the mudras, the Vahana mudras, and you say those mantras along with it. And if you're worshipping another deity rather than Krishna, instead of Sri Krishna, you say Sri Rama, Sri Narasimha, Sri Vamana, whatever the deity is. Sri Radha Krishna, whatever. Okay, so that's about that. So let's continue on, and let's hear the glories of doing this. The glories of doing this invocation of the Lord. So in the Narasimha Purana, in verse 32, it says, in the Narasimha Purana, it says, one should invite the Lord by chanting Agacha. Agacha means come, please come. Agacha, right? Gacha means to go. Agacha means to come. So Agacha Narasimha. Oh Narasimha, please appear before me. Or another such invocation while offering rice paddy and flowers. So we can offer some flowers or some flower petals and some sandalwood paste or some rice paddy, meaning some akshata. He says here rice paddy. It's not rice paddy. Rice paddy is rice with the husk on it. It's rice with the husk taken off it and mixed with either a little bit of kumkum, a little bit of turmeric, all right, to give it a little color. And that is called akshata, right? Unbroken rice. A ruler of kings, simply by inviting the Lord in this way, one can be relieved of all sinful reactions. So this process by itself also relieves us of sins. Text 33. While executing the above-mentioned procedure, the intelligent devotee should follow the etiquette prescribed for his particular sampradaya. He should then also perform the anganyasas of the devatas, right? Of the, it says here, demigods, and display various mudras such as conch and disc. If anybody wants to see, there's a video up on my YouTube channel, which is called Vaishnava Dharma International, or Vaidi for short, which has Avahanadi mudras according to Pancharatra Agamas. So it explains the invocation mudras and for Pancharatra. There may be a little bit different, slightly different here in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, but they're basically the same sort of thing. And they do have the nyasas involved, the anganyas, which is done on the deity, and also the showing of the different mudras or hand signs for the symbols of the Lord, like conch and disc, as well as others. Okay. So what does it say? Nyasa yata sampradayam. According to your sampradayam, do the nyasa now. After you do the Avahana mudras, then do the nyasa on the deity. Normally, the nyasa on the deity is a simple anganyasa, which is Srirana Mahasirse Swaha Suthavasate Kavachaya Hum Netrabhi Vosite or Netratraya Voste Srayapate Om Gurvala Suvahadi Vikandaha. Right. So do that. And then Devangadi, it should be Devangadi probably. Devangadi, Angadi means beginning, Angadini, Purvavat. Starting with the Anganyasa of the different devata, right, of the particular deity. Shankha Chakra Adi Kadasya, beginning with the conch and the disc, you will show the mudras. In the case of Krishna, you might show some other mudras, right? And it says Pradashayat Mudra, Vidvan Pradashayat. So a Vidvan, a person who's knowledgeable, will show these mudras. Show Pradashayat. Pradashayat means to show, and mudras means the hand worship. And with each hand, with the mantra can be chanted, or the hand mudra can be explained. Right. Okay, so then continuing on, we have a statement from the Tattva Sara. Not exactly sure what that book is, but it sounds like an agama. It means Tattva means, of course, principles, and Sara means the cream or the essence of different principles. It must be tantric principles. And this is text 34 of the sixth Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. It says, first one should exhibit various mudras, avahanadi, beginning with avahana. So we've already talked about those mudras. such as the Avahana Mudra, and then perform the Anganyas of the demigods. It says, keep saying Anganyas of the demigods, but what is the Sanskrit there? It says Devasya Anganyasa, Anganyasa Devasya, of the Deva, of the god, of the particular deity we're talking about. Right? After this, one should again display the same mudras. Kritva mudra padarsheya, darshita tattva punaha. So punaha means again. So darshitva, it should be done again. It should be done again after the nyasa. So that's interesting. I've never seen that done. Normally people do the Vahana mudras and everything, and then they do the nyasa, and then they continue on. They don't do it the second time. But here in Hari Bhakti Vilas is sometimes very, very orthodox procedures, and it says do them again. So okay, so it's possible may have to do them again. We could look and see what Sangha Swami says in the purport. Right. Then text 35 to 40, Ata Mudra Agame. Regarding mudras, it is said in the Agamas. So we can also note, right, now that we started talking about mudras, we can also note that that in the Gaudiya Math, right, in their Gaudiya Math Dachina Padadis, this is something for ISKCON people and Gaudiya Math people, that Bhakti Pragan Keshav Maharaj, who was a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta's, who was Srila Prabhupada's sannyas guru, he also mentioned that mudras, pranayam, nyasas, all these sort of things were things which are considered not part of regular worship of the Gaudiya Math or ISKCON people. So, in other words, not to be done as part of a more Raganuga style bhakti, more devotional style of worship, and less ritualistic style of worship. And he calls that Japanga Archana, the use of mudras, pranayam, nyasas, etc., like that. Here, of course, we see that all these things are actually essential. Right? They're essential parts of calling the deity, invoking the deity, and before worshiping the deity. So all these things are actually quite essential. So it's a little strange to understand exactly why some people in the Gaudiya Math are against these things, or some people in ISKCON are against these things. ISKCON, actually, people are not so much against these things. They do a lot of these mudras and things, but some things they don't do, like pranayam and some nyasas. But anyway, we don't know why, but somehow or other, Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to dumb all this down and get rid of a lot of these things like mudras and nyasas and pranayam. Okay, so anyway, in the Agamas, here are some statements about mudras, right? To prove that mudras are bona fide and that should be used in Vaishnava puja. So here's some. These are a lot of slokas, 35 to 45, five verses. So it says here, while worshipping Lord Krishna, a devotee who's expert in the science of chanting mantras should first display these 8 mudras. Avahani, Stapani, Sanidapani, Sanirodini, Sakalikarni, Avaguntani, Amritikarni, Parmikarni. He should then display the Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, Musala, Saranga, Khadga, Pasa, Ankusha, Garuda, Srivatsa, Kaustuba, Venu, Abhaya, Vara, and Vanamala mudras. Right? He should also employ the Bilva mudra. The Bilva mudra, if you remember, I think the Bilva mudra is quite similar to the Kara Kachapika mudra, which we use in the Buddha Shuddhi, which looks like the back of a turtle, but it involves holding the 2 hands together like a bilva fruit, a bale fruit. Okay, so let's run through these again. We've already talked about the Avahana mudras. There's a set of Avahana mudras which are used here. Avahani, Stapani, Sanidapani, Sanirodini, Sakalikuru, Sakalikarni, Avagantani, Amritikarni, and Parmikarni. And they're all mentioned and explained what they were. We just talked about that. Okay, so now, then he should display the different paraphernalia of the Lord, the different ornaments of the Lord, and they are Shankha Chakra, which are the conch and the disc, Gada Padma, which are the other 2 main ornaments or weapons of the Lord, the club and the lotus, right? Then Musala is a type of mace, like that. Sharanga is a bow. Khadga is a sword. Pasha is a noose. Ankusha is a stick, a curved and pointed stick for use for controlling elephants. Garuda is the Lord's vehicle, right? Srivatsa and Kaustuba are on the chest of the Lord, on the right side and the left side of the chest, right? Dakshina Stanode Shivataya Namaha, Svaistanode Kaustubaya Namaha, right? Venu means the flute because we're worshiping Lord Krishna. Abhaya means giving no fear, the Abhaya Mudra, and the Varda Mudra is the opposite, Abhaya, Varda, right? And the Vanamala, like a garland mudras are shown, and then the Bilva Mudra. Okay, so this is pretty simple, right? It explains about all these. Okay, so exactly how Hari Bhakti Vilasa says to make these mudras is explained in detail in the Tika, in the commentary by Sanatana Goswami. And I have had discussions with different people about it. Mostly in North India, people don't know how to do these according to the way they're described in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. But you'll find, perhaps there's somebody in Orissa who knows how to do it, I don't know. But in South India, I asked Vinay Bhatta, who is very learned in the Agama Shastras, and I had a discussion with him. I haven't finished writing out all that research, and I did discuss with him and take pictures of him doing certain things like that, but I haven't actually tabulated that. He was also unaware of some of these mudras and exactly from the Sanskrit how to make them. So more research has to be done exactly how to make these mudras. Anyway, later in his worship, the devotee should repeat the display of these 17 mudras. So do we have 17 mudras here? Okay, so the first 8, if you don't include the Avahan mudras, we have, because otherwise we have too many. Yes, there are 17 mudras here after the 8 mudras which are used for the Avahanam. Right, so that means we have 17 and 8, we have 25 mudras fully that we have to show here. Okay, so then he should repeat the 17 mudras. So I think that's pretty clear. Let's have a look and see in the Sanskrit. I'm not sure whether it mentions 17, the word 17 here somewhere. Just a quick look through, and I don't necessarily see it. Saptadasa. There we go. Saptadasa mudra pradarshi at punaha. Okay, so definitely says in the Sanskrit that it's not all the mudras which are repeated. It's only the 17 mudras, only these 17 mudras that come afterwards, not the 8 original mudras for the invocation. Very good. Okay, so now we've got another Mahatmya giving the glories of mudras. Right. So from the Agastya Samhita, which apparently is a Pancharatra Agama, or an Agama, we're not sure if it's a Pancharatra, but an Agama, it says, O foremost of Brahmanas, a devotee who worships me every day, displaying these 17 mudras, and does it mention here? Saptadasa Bihi. Yes, these 17 mudras. Okay, good. Certainly bewilders even the intelligence of Indra. There is no doubt that he will achieve his desired goal. And continuing on, text 42, while describing the Bilva Mudra, the Kramadipika states, so in case you didn't know about this Bilva Mudra, which is looks like a fruit, Bilva fruit or bale fruit, right? It's specifically stated in Kramadipika that whatever sinful activities a person performs with his body, mind, and speech, either knowingly or unknowingly, can be nullified if he knows the art of displaying mudras. Those who are conversant with the science of mudras are highly regarded, even in the society of the demigods, and they possess the ability to keep everyone under their control. Right. So this might be a good place. This might be a good place to ask if there are any questions or because in fact, the next section is we're going to actually start offering the different upacharas like asana, padya, agya, achurya, shnanya, alankara, bhushana, whatever it is. So here, this is a section in itself, the invocation of the Lord. setting it up with the Pita Puja, worshipping the Pitam and setting up the Pitam and worshipping the Guru Parampara, worshipping Durga, Ganesh, and Saraswati, and Narada Muni in the footwear of the Guru Parampara on the left, and then bringing the deity, placing the deity there, and then with all these other mantras mentioning the different gunas, the different places of fire from the Surya Mandala, Chandra Mandala, and the Soma Mandala, and the Agni Mandala, Vani Mandala, and the different Dharma Jnana, Vairagya, etc., Adharma, Avyaragya. This complete Pita Puja is all set up. Then invoking the Lord, and then doing a Vahanam of the Lord, because he's being worshipped in a Chalamurti, a movable Murti. And so doing that Vahanam by first of all doing the 8 types of Shuddhis, purifying all the different things, including ourselves, our minds, and our intelligence, and purifying the deity's body, chanting the Mula Mantra 8 times, and then doing the Vahanam with the mantras and the 8 mudras at the same time, and then showing, for the Lord's delight, we show these other 17 mudras. So then we can proceed with the offering of the different upacharas, of the different services to the Lord in his murti form. So, any questions about that? We have to actually write it all out and show how to do it, which we haven't done, which we will do. We can do.
No questions. Just really nice, though. It was very interesting.
Yeah, it's a little complicated, and there's a very simple. There's a smarter way of doing a Vahanam, and certain mudras. There's also the Pancharatric way, which involves more mudras. Then there's this Hari Bhakti Vilas way, which involves quite a lot of mudras here. But we have to make a prayoga about it. So we can leave it here today, and we'll pick it up next time. Okay.
Thank you, Swami. Namaskaram. Thank you so much.